I want to ask you about that 2012 run you guys had at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
It's so memorable for a lot of reasons. Obviously, 12-0, the national championship, the way it went, everything that happened with Manti, obviously with the documentary, and everyone knows that story. I don't know if you just have any kind of insight, like behind the scenes. Did you guys know that was a really special team you guys had? Because that was your 5th year, right?
Yeah, that was my last year, and we had been a very average football team. I mean, we were so good at football that our head coach got fired after my sophomore year. So that's how things were going there. I came in under Charlie Weiss, and then I did my last 3 years under Brian Kelly. And I would say the difference that year, and I will never forget, Rocket Ismail came in, who was one of the all-time Notre Dame greats, great NFL player after that. He came in and he talked to us about the difference between the best teams he'd ever been on and the worst teams he'd ever been on. And he said, talent-wise, there wasn't always a huge difference, especially in the NFL. Everyone's great there. But he said the difference was when the schedule would come out at the beginning of the season, the bad teams he was on, you look at the schedule, be like, man, that's going to be a tough one. Like, I don't know if we're going to get that one. Man, we got to go on the road here at that point in the season. And it was the best teams. He goes, we saw the schedule and we saw every game. Why shouldn't we win that? And that was how we felt going into that last year. We looked at that schedule and go, why shouldn't we win every one of these games? We had a very veteran core on both sides of the ball, especially up front on the lines of scrimmage. We had a bunch of talented young guys that stepped up for that year. And so there was definitely that difference in mentality, but you still got to go do it. The biggest takeaway I had from that year is winning is so much harder than I knew. Like and it's not to discredit any of the coaching staff or players that came before me. I got coached by some unbelievable human beings, and I got to play alongside some incredible leaders and players. We just hadn't put it all together at that point. We didn't have consistently the reps at doing the things necessary. Yeah. And my 5th year, my offensive line coach is a man named Harry Heastan, who just finished up his last year at Notre Dame this year. He had 2 different stints. And I think is the best college offensive line coach of this modern era, one of the best of all time. He was the guy that was the coach when, Quentin Nelson, Ronnie Stanley, Zach Martin, Mike McGlinchey, that run of first-round offensive linemen from Notre Dame, those are Heastan guys. And
he at LSU now?
No, he is retired now.
Oh, he's done. Okay.
So he retired this last year. He came back with Marcus for year 1 at Notre Dame last year after leaving originally and going and coaching with the Bears in the NFL, where he had also coached on 2 stints. And the standard that he set in that room, Notre Dame's offensive line room has a proud tradition. There's a ton of great names and All-Americans in that room and guys that had come before. But the pride he had in that room and the standard that he set for us each and every day on what it's going to take. Hey, we're going to be out at practice before everybody else. We're going to be out there a half hour, 45 minutes, doing walkthroughs in full pads, and we're going to be out there 45 minutes after everyone else, doing mirror dodge after you've done a full day's worth of practice and all of these things where you're already exhausted. And then we're going to go and we're going to watch more film. We're going to do it together. And everything you do on and off the field as an O-line unit is going to be together. And you are going to be the tip of the spear. If this team succeeds, it is going to be because of us. And every day we came to work, that standard was uncompromising and unflinching. And every day you knew if you messed up, it wasn't just we were doing one drill to get to the next drill. It was everything had a purpose. If it wasn't going to show up in a game, why were we going to waste time on it? And we were going to do it until everyone got that right. And that made the season, honestly, like in real time, very difficult to get through. Because you're going through and we're winning all these games and all my friends are like, it's supposed to be awesome. I was like, I wake up every day nervous about letting the team down, about letting him down, about getting my ass chewed on Friday because I got beat by Stephon Tuitt in 2-minute drill on Thursday when we're running it in practice. But that's what it takes. And, I've heard, I'm not comparing us as a program and them as a program, but I'm saying there's similar through lines in what it takes to be great at a high level that I think Coach Heastan specifically and what he helped in our room that year embody. And what I've heard from the guys who talk about Nick Saban in Alabama and who have had him in the pros, because I remember I think it was Jonathan Allen or Deron Payne, one of the guys who's in Washington now, was on a podcast and said, everybody thinks they want to go and play for Alabama until they get there. Then you find out how much you really want all that. Yeah. And it was that same sort of thing where, hey, that wasn't going to be for everybody, and you were going to find out how much you really wanted to give to this. But, man, if you gave it all, he was going to give you everything in return. And so that and my experience with him in that position room, my experience with the rest of that team was just us kind of learning that year, hey, this is actually what it takes to be able to go out and go 1-0 every week. And to have the confidence in the middle of the game when you're down 21 points to a Pitt team that you shouldn't be losing to just say, hey, we're going to go out the next drive and just try and make it happen. You guys know, people say that all the time, that reset. People talk about momentum. It takes a mature team to not buy into any of that stuff, and I think that's what we ended up becoming that season.
That's my next question. When you talk about the transition from Charlie Weiss to Brian Kelly, the word you used was, I did 3 years under Brian Kelly, which to me almost sounds like, I served under Kelly. And I don't know if it's a Freudian slip, but obviously the intensity is there. His resume speaks for itself. So much has been made of him with the transition to LSU and some of kind of the funny things that we've seen as fans. Can you give us like some behind the scenes of who Brian is and what it's like as a day under,
Yeah, and I want to be clear. That's just the way I talk.
Right. No.
Nothing to read into.
It was just interesting because
I have a lot of good feelings for both of them. Because listen, Charlie Weiss could administer an ass chewing and ran a tight ship too. I mean, that's the Patriot way that came into town. So I think there was great discipline with both. And I still have a great relationship with Coach Weiss to this day. I've seen Coach Kelly obviously through a lot of this too. But I would say the biggest strength, and this is what I told a lot of people at LSU, because when this change made, I got a lot of LSU radio stations and people that were calling me asking, hey, what are we getting in Brian Kelly? And I truly think as a coach, he understands where his feet are as well as any coach in college football. Meaning when he gets there, he's going to look around at the resources available and he's going to maximize them. He's the CEO type coach, right? Where he's going to delegate responsibility. He's got assistants that he trusts. He's got the things that are in place. And then he is going to figure out, all right, how do we maximize what we've got here? For us at Notre Dame, it was, hey, you can recruit incredible tight ends, offensive and defensive linemen here. We're going to lock that down. We're going to have quality depth at those positions on both sides of the ball. And then, they got better at recruiting in the defensive secondary. The quarterback position, we got better at recruiting the quarterback position. There were always good guys there that you were trying to maximize, but the foundation was going to be an O-line and D-line team. And obviously the tight end storied program that we, have been and continue to be under him. Now at LSU, hey, listen, you got great wide receiver talent there. You've got an incredible dynamic dual threat quarterback that Brian's always loved at whatever spot he's been at. So I think he's very good at surveying the scene, understanding what this particular program needs, and then creating an environment for that to happen.
Do you think we're giving him too much credit if that fake accent and the recruiting videos he did on purpose to get social media views?
I think so. I think it's one of those things. I always tell the story. My sister-in-law is from Boston, and so she doesn't have the accent as much anymore, but it comes out when she gets angry. But her family, they all got the Boston accent. Her cousins all got the Boston accent. So when my brother and her were getting ready to get married, we said, why don't we do a guys' weekend with all the guys that are going to be in the wedding party? I hadn't met a lot of her cousins and stuff yet. So we went and rented a house up in Lake Winnipesaukee, and we were just hanging out. And they're all sports fans. So we're sitting around, and this is, peak Tom Brady and the Patriots in the middle of their run and all that stuff. And I'm just kind of sitting around taking it all in. And I'm sitting here and listening to these guys talking about Tom Brady and the Celtics and the Sox and all that stuff. Yeah. And the next time I went to open my mouth, a little bit of the accent came out because I was just sitting there kind of absorbing it the entire time. And so I'm thinking maybe it was just something like that where you're down here, you're hearing it, you kind of slip into the comfort a little bit.
1 week, though? That's crazy.
Hey, man, Louisiana. I don't know if you spent much time down in Louisiana. Right. Does not take long. They will take you in like one of their own very quickly. One of my favorite experiences was tailgating before an LSU game. Man, those people are welcoming and accommodating. And man, do they have a lot of ice luges down there.
Right. That's hilarious. No, I mean, it makes sense as far as changing himself. That's what you said, according to the environment.
Sure. And listen, that went too far.
Right.
It went too far.
But understanding the dynamics of Louisiana recruiting, it's going to be a lot different than a Midwest Indiana sense in South Bend.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, Notre Dame, you're recruiting nationally, right? Certainly you want to, impact the footprint there in the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, a lot of the same places the other Midwest schools are recruiting. But you're a national program. You go a little bit everywhere. LSU, hey, it's about the relationships you got, especially first and foremost in your backyard. You plant the flag and you build the fence around the state of Louisiana that's got so much football talent in it.
Yeah. What do you think Notre Dame SC this year?
It's going to be interesting, man. I think, we were talking before we got on air here. SC is fascinating because this should be the year. The schedule lines up perfectly. I mean, really, until you guys head to South Bend, it's not like you have to break much of a sweat.
You still have Utah, UW, UCLA.
But those are all after Notre Dame. You've got that. Your schedule's backloaded. But I guess I'm saying as far as the grind of a long season, the beginning of the schedule sets up really nicely. And then you have the trip to South Bend. And then the beauty of the Pac-12 this year is so many of the top teams have to play each other between UW, Oregon, Utah, USC. We get to see them have it out. Yeah. But it's going to be fascinating. Listen, last year, the exercise and frustration that was trying to watch Notre Dame's defense corral Caleb Williams. He's like a greased pig out there.
That game was insane.
You can't get your hands around, dude. So
that long run, I've never seen anything like it.
No, and he's got plays like that every day. I remember getting ready for that game. I turned on the Utah game, and 3 plays in, remember that Zach Wilson pro day throw that lit everybody
Yeah.
up? He did that in a game.
Oh, yeah.
Caleb did that 3 plays in it, and the only reason it didn't hit was because the receiver dropped a ball that he put right in the bucket, rolling the opposite direction, sidearm fling like 30, 40 yards on a frozen rope.
Yeah.
So,
well, as a quarterback, and I think you could probably relate, Cole, like a part of it's making the actual throw, which is very, very difficult. Like even open grass, no defense, like those throws are hard to make. But also the confidence, like the mental construct it takes to even attempt that throw.
Right.
To me, as a quarterback, like if I'm standing behind, I'm like there's a concept, like I could see the coverage. I'm like, okay, I have a good idea where I'm gonna go based off of like, risk of the ball getting deflected or interception. Like obviously you want a good completion depending on whatever the down and distance is.
Sure.
I mean, these are attempts that like I wouldn't even try. Like, and then he actually makes the throw in that situation in a huge game. Like, it just blows my mind.
The confidence.
The confidence is number one, though.
Oh, but like, and that's, I think, true across the board. And it's a great point about how most of us think, because, listen, I'm in the rank and file of players. I was a very average college football player. And so I did things by the book. Like you said, based on the situation. All right, what's the down and distance? What's the defense showing us here? What's the thing that can hurt us the most? And what do I do to protect against that first and foremost? I'm not thinking, man, what can I do to get the biggest, best highlight pancake on this particular play? Because I didn't have that luxury, like a hierarchy of needs. For Caleb and for the guys that are best, and I heard Dan Orlovsky say it talking about quarterbacks, is what's their stinger? And for him, that's the stinger where you're so confident in your ability to more often than not, enough times, make the plays. Because between the relationship between player and coach, it's how much capital do you have built up on the plays that you make. If you're a D lineman that's going to jump out of your gap 90% of the time, but you make the play 85% of the time, coach is going to live with that. Because you've shown more often than not you can do that. But those first few, it takes confidence to be able to do that and build up that goodwill over time, which is just insane.